Now, various governments around Australia are imposing another perfectly predictable crisis on us. They are shutting down our electricity generators before any ability to replace them has been built. The Institute of Public Affairs has just released a report into this, and the Executive Director, Scott Hargreaves, joins me now. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Fred. Thanks for having me.
Scott, can you give me a little update on how much energy generation we have demolished in the past few years?
Well, I think all over Australia we've seen, say, the Northern Power Station in South Australia, Hazelwood in Victoria, which was about 1,600 megawatts, and now Liddell, which at its peak was more than 2,000 megawatts. So we've stripped literally thousands and thousands of megawatts out of the system. And what's concerned me even more is that what is slated for closure this side of 2035, like that's some kind of magical date, is 40% of the energy that was sent out last year. All of those power stations, and I've got the list which I can bore you with, Fred, that's 40% of the capacity of the system in terms of energy sent out that would actually be closed down and, like all these other stations, literally blown up. There's this strange mania to blow things up.
I know it's really comical the way they want to make a spectacle of it, but let's hear the list, because some of the viewers will be familiar with these because it'll be their local power station.
Yeah, so I called Liddell, this report, Liddell, the line in the sand, which you can, of course, find on the IPA website, ipa.org.au. But the big one coming up, which I've pointed out to the Premier of New South Wales, Chris Minns, is the Eraring Power Station in New South Wales. We also have, for instance, Bayswater, Callide C in Queensland, Gladstone, Stanwell, Loy Yang A in Victoria, which would be disastrous. But Eraring is due to close by 2025. This is like Australia's biggest power station, and its owner has said, well, we're going to close it down in 2025. And the Premier of New South Wales can't allow that to happen.
Well, let's move from the closure of these, which is tragic enough, to what is being planned to build in their place. What's coming along is mostly renewables, right?
Well, that's right. And there's two problems with that. Is like, first of all, even if they could be built on the scale that they promise, and remember, to replace 2,500 megawatts of a reliable baseload power station that runs 80 to 90% of the time, you would need like 7,500 megawatts of a wind farm, say, because it only operates a third of the time. So it's a massive, massive scale. And what we've seen in the system over the past 2 decades is that the greater the share of renewables, the more the cost goes up. So the first issue is it's actually a bad plan. You can have a certain amount of renewables, and we're probably at about that level now. But to try and do it on that scale is impossible. But the second part, of course, is they are not being built in the time frame promised. We're blowing up the power station in the hope that these massive amount of wind farms, solar farms, transmission lines could be built in that time frame. We're going to be left without the power that we need to keep the lights on, Fred.
So, yeah, let's talk about what effect this will have. There's two effects, prices and blackouts. What's your prediction, Scott?
Oh, well, certainly prices is an absolute definite thing that is already happening. We've already seen increases of 25 to 31% announced for the forthcoming financial year. This is devastating for households and industry. And then certainly the risk of blackouts is going up all the time. And what the system operators do, incidentally, is actually telling people to switch off. So the only way they can keep the lights on is to shut down industries, to tell factories to stop producing stuff, to tell workers to stop coming to work. So we've got an increased risk of blackouts, which they're going to manage in ways that are actually devastating for the economy.